Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. As discussed in part 1, we've got 3 of my Cymbidiums left to do work on, either potting on or repotting, and that's all the work done on my Cymbidium collection prior to them going outside for the summer growing season. Well into autumn this time round. They're staying out there until the last minute, until the threat of frost. And if that's right into November, so be it. We will induce those blooms with those cold autumn nights. But anyway, let's get them growing and some nice big fat bulbs first. So 3 plants to do today in this video, part 2. And some are going to be easy. One in particular I don't think is going to be easy, but I'm going to start with the easy one. We'll see. Anyway, they're down here on the floor. I'll bring them all up in turn. Right, so this one is Cali Night. I suspect this is going to come out of the pot very easily because of what it's in. Nice group of new growths on this, already started. When we counted them up in the previous video, we missed this one because the spike was here. And it was actually running along underneath the spike. I completely missed it. So there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there was one in the middle, wasn't there? Well, there's 4 definite new growths on here. I've got a feeling this is a new growth that pushed on early. 4 at least, anyway. So let's get this out and see what we're dealing with. This bulb here with the crinkled leaves was on it when I got it. That looks a little bit like total lack of hydration over a period of time. I've never seen crinkled leaves on a Cymbidium before. But as I said, that's what it was like when I got it. I'm stuck with that. Until this bulb becomes a back bulb and drops these leaves. Right, are you going to come out? I suspect it's going to come out okay, because it's in a fibrous type media. I don't know how long it's been in this pot, but it should come out okay. Yeah, there we go. That's the easy one. Now the reason for repotting this is to get it out of this fibrous media, because when they go outside they will get rained on, and in this country we do occasionally get some very long periods of rain, and this would act like a sponge and soak up until it became absolutely sodden, and if it stayed like that for any length of time we could be starting to rot the roots off. So the media's got to come out. It's a fibrous type media. We've got some new root growth going on, which is good. And I don't know how long it's been in the pot. I doubt if it's been that long because the root base isn't solid. But we've got lots of new root tips here, as well as some good quality existing roots. So this is a good root system. Absolutely well pleased with this. This plant has a little story actually. When I ordered it, it was advertised as being in bloom with 2 or 3 spikes, and I blurted ahead and went and actually advertised the unwrapping or unboxing video prior to getting the plant, and actually said we've got a plant coming and it's got 2 or 3 spikes on it and it'll be wonderful. When we opened the box there was no blooms, but there were some spikes starting, and those spikes are what we've been enjoying since then with these lovely almost black blooms. Yes, it was a little confusion, no big deal, but yeah, so it wasn't in bloom after all. Right, I don't need to get every scrap of this out because my mix actually has some fibrous material in, as in potting compost, so a little bit of this left in there is not the end of the world. But we've got the biggest part of it out very easily. So, and I've just spotted another new growth down here that was buried in the media. right next to that root tip. So that's yet another new growth. I suspect we are going to have an awful lot of spikes on this next year, next season. Now this is a cascade type Cymbidium, but it's one of those that as the spikes progress, if you stake them part way up and then allow them to arch over, you end up with a semi-cascade, which is a lot easier to look after. And yeah, anyway, so that's that one. It's going back in the same pot with new media, so we can tuck it in there gently for now while we get the other two sorted out. Right, so you can sit, actually you can sit over here out the way. In fact, you can go down on the floor. Come back up in a minute. Right, so the next one is also going to be very easy to do. I'm leaving the difficult one till last. Some people would say you should have done that first. Just putting the label back with Calinite. I ought to do a new label really, these labels aren't so good. No, I mean, it's just a sort of pencil scribbled on a white tag, so I will replace it. Right, so this one's just going to come straight out. I doubt if this is root bound at all. But I could be wrong. Well, it's got a lot of roots at the bottom of the pot. So it's certainly not going back in that one, that goes in the bin. It's absolutely bone dry. And this is a bit of a problem with this media from Mathers, is that it's a fibrous mix. It's difficult to say what it is, but it's a fibrous mix, quite heavy on the perlite, with some bark. But as you can see, it's very difficult to wet once it gets dry. Water just seems to go straight through the pot and not get absorbed. So, you know, this plant is starting to dehydrate, despite the fact it gets watered regular. But you can see this is dust dry. We've got some nice growing root tips again, so we've got a nice root system. We will get as much of this media out as possible because it's inhibiting the plant's ability to hydrate. So we definitely don't want any of this, or very little of this, lying around. Get it all cleaned off. It's dust dry, literally. The water's just been going through the pot and not being absorbed. Anyway, very good root system, as expected. Growing root tips, and we have our single new growth on this one. Nice strong one. But it's a small division, and as you can see, if you just look at the bulbs, they're not plumped up. The latest one isn't bad, but there's slight creases. I don't know whether you can see at that distance. Let's get a bit closer. You see the creases? It's not fully hydrated, and now we can see why. That should be rectified once it gets in its new media. So say it's got growing roots and new root tips. It's a good root system, so we'll get that in some decent media. I can drop back in that pot just for now while I mess around, but certainly not going back in that pot. That will go in a Cymbidium pot. We'll find something suitable. So that can go out of the way. Right, that's the easy stuff done. Now we've got the hard one, which we might end up having to scrap the pot. It's a large plant, and it's probably absolutely jammed in this pot. We will first of all, the trouble is with these Cymbidium pots is they're strong pots, so they're very difficult to do the solid. There's no movement in that pot at all. So it's been in here a while, I think. We've got lots of new growths. I suspect there's roots showing at the base, yeah, even coming out of the base. Right, I'm going to break off for a minute because we're going to try something different. Suggested by a viewer, and the other suggestion from a viewer was just as good, but not as practical. I'll go over those when I get back. Right, now the first person's idea, which could possibly work, was to actually turn the pot upside down and bang the rim of the pot on the edge of my workbench. Yeah, holding the pot and pulling the plant at the same time. Not a bad idea at all, apart from the fact, so you turn the pot upside down, all the media falls out and would go all over the floor and all over the place. Because obviously the majority of the pot would be hanging over the edge of the workbench. So idea number one, not very practical, but may have worked. Second idea, brute force. Hold the plant and hit the edge of the pot hard with a hammer, and the jolt could snap it loose. Preferably not beating a new growth to pulp in the process. So I'm going to give this a try. I'm going to find a piece of the plants that I can hold on to quite firmly, not a new growth, and an area of the pot that's not a new growth, and give it a whack. First of all, actually, we will go round and tap the pot and see if that loosens it a bit. This is obviously applying a lot more pressure than I can do with my hand. These are quite firm jars. Jarring the pot quite violently. Whether it's going to do any good or not, I don't know. But we will have a go at this, and then if it doesn't work, I'm afraid we will have to sacrifice the pot again, which I really don't like doing. As I said, these deep Cymbidium pots are not that easy to get hold of. Right, so we've given it a good go. Puffed out already. And now we will try whacking the side of the pot again. Let's see what happens. Absolutely jam-packed full of roots. Thank you very much for the individual who suggested the hammer. I've got a feeling somebody else suggested a rubber mallet, which I haven't got. I'd have to go and buy one. Whereas I do have a hammer. But that worked. That worked. Well done, whoever thought of that. I wouldn't have thought of doing that. Right, what are we going to do then? Now that I can see what's going on, don't forget I potted this, so inside of this solid mass of roots that have grown in my care is my media, and there is nothing wrong with that media in that pot, so I'm just going to pop that on. It's the gentlest thing I can do. There's new roots coming from the top, there's root tips here, there's root tips right down here, that goes in a bigger pot, there's root tips at the base, there's root tips all over the place, so that will get potted on with no more work than new media. So when you're working with big plants like this, I will say this because it is important. When you go to Mathers, you have to have a safety briefing before you enter the nursery and start the tour. And the reason is this, right next to me now. These are pointed. If I didn't have glasses on, I'd have probably poked my eye out by now playing with these plants. And it's important because you can turn, somebody says, oh, have you seen this? And you swing round like that, straight into a Cymbidium leaf, straight in your eye. And they are pointed. And they're quite sturdy leaves. They're not flimsy floppy stuff, quite firm leaves. So there is an element of danger. Also, it's a working nursery and sometimes the floors are soaking wet. It wasn't designed to have loads of people in it. was designed to grow plants and just have one or two people looking after them that would know to just take care. You know, people from the old school, you know, where common sense ruled, where if you're walking along the sidewalk, pavement, and there's a big hole there, you tended to think, oh, big hole in the pavement, I'll walk round that. You didn't need huge notices and barriers and men with red flags going like this because you could see the flipping thing. Health and safety drives me up the wall. Right, so the potting on and 2 to repot. So we will get rid of the waste matter. It's a pity this has all got perlite in it. It could just go on the garden. But not with perlite in it because it doesn't degrade. So we'll get the waste out of the way, bring my Cymbidium media in that's in a bag, see how much we've got, and probably have to mix up a bit more. So as always, I'll be back. Okay, the mix, I've said mix, my mix varies slightly, but it's roughly the same sort of base. It's my smallest bark as a base. Then the next size up to make sure there's some reasonable drainage because they're larger chunks. And then I add perlite into that to help hold some moisture in dry spells, also adds drainage. In this mix I've added some pumice for the same reason, but it also adds some weight to the pot. It's stones after all. And then the potting compost goes in to give it its fibrous content. You have to bear in mind that most Cymbidiums are either semi-terrestrials or terrestrials. In amongst the species there are some epiphytes, and it would pay you to find out if yours is one of those because they would need a more open mix. But otherwise a terrestrial mix is best for Cymbidiums. Those roots are bullies. They grow through concrete. Absolute bullies. Right, what was going to be the hardest one and turned out to be not so bad is the big one. Now this one's getting potted on, so this becomes easy now. What we've got to do is get some mix in the pot and get the plant to the right level. That is incredibly important because if it's too high in the pot, then when you water it, you wash all the mix off the side of the pot. So we get some in there and try it. Sit it on that. Not enough. That's not high enough. That would be far too big a pot. And also it would deprive those lower roots of extra space. The whole point of using deep pots is you can see the roots have gone right down to the bottom of the pot. They like a deep pot. That's better. Seat that down nicely and then start filling around the sides. And I suspect this mix I've mixed up, which I was hoping to do all 3, is just going to do this one. But we will add it in. Yeah, I don't think I've got anywhere near enough here. These are big pots. Especially as, when we get this up to a certain level, I'm going to press it down pretty hard. We haven't even got it to that level yet and I'm nearly out of mix. So we've got nowhere near enough. I'm going to need what I've just done again on top of that. Let me get through some mix with these Cymbidiums. It's just the size of the pots basically. They're just huge pots. Right, I've got some in down the sides. That means the plant is now seated. Make sure I've used all that. So I'll make the most of what I've got. And the problem is I haven't got enough to bring the level up to where I want it to be able to do the next stage. So we will have to break off and mix up another lot. I haven't even got up to anywhere near high enough down this side. Well, that was a lot of mix. Didn't even do the first one. So I'm going to mix up the same amount again to finish this one off. So we'll have to put that to one side. That. And I've got dirty hands. And the worst thing is my fingernails need cutting. So most of the dirt's under there now. Should be in the pot, but under my fingernails. I'll be back. Right, where was I? You get the level up to near the top, and then we do this. Absolutely press it in hard. Firms it all in round those roots and gives it a lovely firm base to grow into, which is what these like. And then we can top it up to near the top of the pot. And this is why it's quite important to get the level right, because if you come up too close to the top of the pot, every time you water it, you'll wash the media over the side of the pot, which is a right pain. It goes all over the place. Right, so there we are, that's that one done. Jolly good. Room for expansion. And that is Jamie Red. We have new tags for all of these. So that goes there. That's going to need a big tray and a good water now. So we'll put it on its big tray. I'll set it on the floor for now, out of the way. So that's that one done. What's next then? We just got to do the one that's up here. Now that's going to go in this Cymbidium pot, which is a bit big, and I'm looking to change that. What could we use instead? Because that pot is just a bit too big. Something like this. How is that? It's still a bit big, you know. I'm going to come down another one if I can find a suitable pot. The trouble is with these pots, they go from far too big to being too small. You know, I think that'll go in there. This is quite a small pot, but then this is quite a small plant. Problem is it deep enough? No, that won't go in there. Too small. Right, so we'll have to go back up to the one we had. I've got nothing in between. Nothing in between. Nope. Right, so we go back up to that one then. That's still smaller than the actual Cymbidium pot, and it will obviously allow for growth. So that can go in there. You won't need much in the bottom because it's not a deep pot. Too much. And just enough to cover the bottom. That's better. Where's my new growth? That's there, so plenty of room for that. Now this time we're in a different ball game because the bottom of the plant, the root area, is hollow. So we get some in, and then we do a hell of a lot of this to get that to go into all those gaps. The problem being that you can't press it down hard in the centre of the pot. The only place you can do that is round the edges. But you can tap it all into the centre first, then when you press down round the edges, you're pushing in on something that's quite firm. So again, I'm going to go down around the edges, get this nice and firm. The plant's nice and tight in the pot. And then all we've got to do is just check the top. Better not to have roots exposed, but a few at the base of the pseudobulbs doesn't matter that much. So there we go. That's that one done. And that one is Parnasse. It's probably French and probably has an association with the Eric Young Foundation, which is on the island of Jersey, which has all French town names and has a big association with France, but it's still really part of the UK. It's a strange set, those Channel Islands. Anyway, that's that one done. Oh, didn't take the old label off the back. Duh. That could have been confusing, because it's definitely not a Deesa, is it? Right, we need a tray for that one. Will you fit in there? No, you won't, will you? You'll have to have a big one, I'll get that in a minute. Oh, again, I've got big trays, medium and small, and I could do with trays in between the big and the medium. Right, and we saved the pot. We saved the pot. So that will do for another smaller plant when it gets potted on. Now where's the last one then? That's this one. Oh! And this is Cali Nights. This is going back in its pot that it came out of. Is it? Or would it go better in there? It's got quite a few new growths, but then it doesn't have huge bulbs. I think it'll probably be better tight in that same pot. We'll grow it on for a year and then it can go in a larger pot next year when we deal with it, so it can go back in there. So we need some in the bottom. Check the height. Again, really good root system. Notice we haven't taken any roots off. Normally when I'm repotting there's a hacking the root session that actually takes place. This is being reluctant to go in because I haven't got all the roots tucked around the edges yet. We will get there, and then because this is taking quite a bit of fiddling around to get it to sink down in the pot, we will hope it's at the right level when we hit the bottom. It's actually a bit high. Do you know, it is going to have to go in the bigger pot simply because it won't fit in that one. It's just too tight. So we will go to the next size up, which it's probably going to mean I haven't got enough media again. Duh. Right, so slightly deeper pot this time so we can have some media in the bottom, which will help these lower roots. That's sliding in quite nicely. And that's about the right height. So we're good to go. Right, where's my new growths? There. Yeah, I think we need to go back over there a bit. Because this one had all of the media removed, or the biggest part of it, there's obviously an awful lot of air gaps between the roots, which means as I bang the side of the pot, the media is just disappearing. It's all going down into the gaps, which is good. I mean, that's the plan, but probably means I haven't got enough media again. We're not going to have enough because I haven't even pressed it down yet. nice and firm, and we've got one handful of media left, which is not enough. What a nuisance. But then I'll still say I'm relatively new to Cymbidiums, so the size of these pots is a whole new ball game that I'm just not used to, you know. Right, so unfortunately I'm going to need about 2 handfuls. I'm not going to bother hanging around on the video to do that. You've seen the point, you've seen what I'm up to and everything like that. So that's the end of the work for my Cymbidium collection. The next piece of work is going to be to fix the staging up and make those wheels on the base nice and firm and secure so that they're not going to break off like they did before, and then everything will go outside. When the Cymbidiums go outside, I have to position them on the staging where I want them, because that's where they're going to have to stay, because they get wired on to stop them blowing off in the wind, which could cause serious damage obviously. So they get wired to the staging. The staging is on wheels, it moves around, gets a bit of afternoon sun, you know, then gets moved out because that place would have midday sun the next day. So that's where we will be aiming to get, probably next week. Not this week coming, the one after probably now, because I forgot Hannah's coming down for a long weekend, so that knocks out Friday, Saturday and Sunday. So we'll see how we go, but you know, given the work I've got to do on the staging, you know, there's wood to cut up, holes to drill, pieces to fix, staining. I've got to stain the new pieces all round, a couple of coats, make sure they're good and secure, get them all fixed on, and then coat the whole thing up, give it a nice refresher. So there's quite a bit of work to do on the staging, which I will do in here. I've got a nice piece of carpet I can put on the floor from next door, and that will stop the drips going on the floor, so there should be minimal, if any, clearing up to do, unlike the last lot of staining I did in here, where I spent ages cleaning the floor up. So there we go, that's the last of the Cymbidium work until next year, basically. I won't be doing any in the autumn. They'll come in with hopefully their spikes starting. So there we go, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.